Hi, everyone, and welcome to Alma Live. This is our series on emotional resilience, and we are so excited to have Sierra Melcher with us, international speaker, coach, and author. Welcome, Sierra.
Thanks, Adriana. I'm so glad to be here this morning.
So first off, tell us where in the world you're joining from.
I'm tuning in from Medellin, Colombia.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
I feel closer to you now that we're down in the Yucatan.
We're neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. So would you take a minute and, in your own words, share with us who you are, what you're up to in the world, what matters to you?
Yeah, that's always really the best place to start, isn't it? On some level, what I'm up to is just keeping myself sane-ish and my daughter alive and entertained in this changing world. But deeper underneath all of that is a continuing evolution. For the last number of years, my main focus and purpose has been supporting women to discover and deepen their relationships with themselves. I hold women's circles. I do one-on-one mentoring. Some of the stuff I'm sure we'll talk about is woven into all of that. And what's like on the horizon, just right over the edge of where I'm going towards, is the following up of a nudge that I've been feeling for this whole time, really, where women are saying, where is the space for men in this global transformation that, each woman's having for herself, which becomes sort of a holographic, right? If I can change myself and I can change my relationship or just revise my relationship with myself, then that ripples out into all of my relationships and all of those lives and into the world around me. And so I'm working on bridging what I see as a gap, actually, between the work that women are doing for themselves and for the world and what's going on for men. They need this space as much as we do, and all of us need to figure out how to connect and open the conversation. So that's coming.
Exciting. I can't wait to hear about that.
Me too.
So this topic of emotional resilience, right? It's like anything. There's a lot of definitions of it. There's a wide spectrum. How would you describe it for yourself? What does it mean to you?
To roll with it. Flexibility. I get this sort of bouncing ball, putty kind of image that it's the opposite of rigidity or control, in that we're like, okay, well, this is happening, I guess. But also not spinning out because something happened or shifted, or you're feeling something that was unexpected. It's flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. This ability to bend in new ways as necessary, right?
Yeah. You can call it evolve. You can call it, respond, however it is that you want to, or play. Okay. I think the words that we use to talk about ourselves, to explain our experiences, really determine who we are and what our experiences are. Like, oh, I'm so busy. Okay, great. Well, now you've just made that true. I don't use the word busy. I'm never busy. I have a full schedule. I have a full life. And for me, that feels completely different. And work on something or play with something changes how I relate to it. And because that changes how I relate to it, it changes the result that I get.
So true. Words matter.
The water experiments where they freeze water and, you can put an idea into some water, you can write a word on it, and the crystal freezes and has a totally different shape. So water that has the word hate on it and water that has the word love on it have really different crystallization patterns. Words have physical manifestation. They would definitely form neurological patterns in your brain, and that shapes your physiology as well as your mental constructs, but they're tangible in ways that we don't usually give them credit for, which is why meditation is great, because it tunes you into what's the food that I'm feeding my brain? What are these thoughts? What are these words? Because we can influence them.
Mm. And what I've noticed is it's easier to become aware of this for me, or it became instantly more real when I had children. And I realized that they would respond differently, or they would, because they're soaking it up.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you said that, because we started this thing, actually, when we were still in New Orleans. We'd go on these walks and we would do these scavenger hunts, right? So I would say, we're going to look for this item. And then, of course, that's all their little minds and eyes are scanning for. Mm. And I remember I said, we're going to look for a coin. And one of my boys said, okay. And the other one said, I don't know if we can find it. Mm-hmm. And the other quickly reminded him, you don't say that, because your words are like a wand, right? That abracadabra.
Yeah.
So you're so right. I love how you say that. I'm busy, or my life is full. My schedule is full.
Yeah.
My business is full. So, and I would love to hear from those who are watching, what's your definition of emotional resilience? What does that mean to you? So, of course, that naturally leads us into, how did you learn it? And we were talking before we come on. This isn't like a learned it, like a one-time deal, right? We are constantly learning it. But I would love if you could share a story of a time when you really felt this, because this is where I think the audience connect to your stories of when you journeyed into it.
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind actually is all the times that I learned what it wasn't. And I think sometimes to know the opposite is to help to know the thing, right? Well, what do you want? I don't know what I want, but I know what I don't want. It's a good place to start. So the first thing that came to mind, of course, is a handful of whatever the opposite of resilience is. Sideways, mess up, just like overwhelm. I think it would just be overwhelm. Actually, emotional overwhelm for me is the opposite of resilience, where I got totally sidelined by something that was happening around me or to me. And I don't usually speak publicly or live about my relationship with my daughter's father, because someday she might hear it, and I want to be thinking about that. But in the first couple of years of her life, he and I almost never communicated. And when we did, it wiped me out for like 10 days at a time. A single text message could blow me out of the water. And I'd spin out. It would like all the things would happen in my head because I hadn't settled into it, and it was happening here. I wasn't allowing it to happen here because I was too afraid of the feelings, all the feelings, the anger and the fear and the disappointment, and maybe some even of like, how much of this is my own fault? I'd much rather blame it on someone and spin out than own it. And so there were probably, in the course of the first 2.5 years, there were 3 maybe of these like interactions that just rocked me. And then it was what we're talking about. I revised the story of all the things that I thought I was so upset about. I was like, oh my God, wait a minute. This is good. This is the better of the options. Here, I was like, here's what I've been wanting. I was getting it, but I didn't see that. And as soon as I did, it was, like a breath. And all I felt like I'd been tied up by my own thoughts and feelings. And then those same bonds were just like, oh, you have everything that you've been working, like that you want. And I don't think that would have come. Well, let me rephrase that. I know that it did come as a result of the work that I was doing to figure out who the hell I was. Mm. And so when I think of myself as quite resilient now, but by accident, that I didn't set out to become emotionally resilient, because if I had, I would have been signing on for a whole lot of emotional struggle, which isn't the way, like, as we were saying earlier, we don't learn resiliency on a beautiful, easy day. We learn it through trial by fire, and we learn it in the gauntlet, and we learn it in the hard places. And so I didn't set out to say, like, this is what I want to do or become, but I found it through the other work that I was doing to try to figure out who I was. Mm-hmm. And this is, for me, my understanding and interpretation of resiliency is when you know who you are, then you can roll with everything else, because you haven't invested in the facade of who you are, or at least you're aware that it's just, this is who I am now, but you're also really grounded with your deepest self. And so if you get knocked on your side, that's okay, because you're still connected to yourself. Whereas if your facade gets slapped across the face, then you have to, like, analyze, how do I respond to this? And it's an intellectual or a rigid sort of chess game, which isn't, if strategy is not required for resilience. And if you're just who you are, then you feel into, okay, how does that feel? Which is easier said than done. It's because feelings are something that we're not really taught literacy about. That the fact that most people don't have very many words for how they're feeling, literal words. They don't have the vocabulary to describe their own sensations, which makes us quite literally illiterate in our own emotions. And so we shut them down and we block them out, and we only maybe leave room for happy and sad. Like, that's a 1-year-old's vocabulary about our emotional experience. And that shuts us off from exploring it, understanding it, feeling it, and letting it go. Because anything that we don't like the unknown. Mm-hmm. So if we don't know what it is that we're experiencing, but we're like, oh, it's not happy, I don't know what it is, I'm going to put it over here, but it's not over here. It's in here, right? It's stored, it's locked down. My mentor taught me a word that I love to connect with, that emotion is energy in motion. And that really helped me free up the space to let things move. Yes. Feel it. You can let it overwhelm you. You can let it take you over, which is a degree of surrender. Mm-hmm. And you can, you won't lose yourself permanently in it. And that's what I think what we're afraid of. We're like, if I allow myself to feel this, I will never blah, 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 blah. Which then our thought is, oh, good, now I don't have to feel it at all. But that means we're just hanging on tighter to something that we don't want. And so the courage for me came in going deeper into the thing that I didn't want. And in my new book that I a couple of times quote this quote that I absolutely love. It's, the caves you fear to enter hold the treasure you seek. And that I keep reminding myself that when I feel like I don't want to do something or go somewhere, I'm like, that's exactly where I'm supposed to go. That's where the richness lies, in that place that I don't want to explore, in that thing that I'm afraid of. And so I'm like, okay, let's go into it, which I can do now because I trust myself, because I know that I will be me, I'll be okay through it, and on the other side, that I'm not going to lose myself. And so looking at the hard stuff and look at it, like open up the hand, see what it is that you've been resisting or hiding from and holding, and acknowledge it. It's valid. This is the other thing. We're like, no, I don't want these things, and therefore I don't give them the attention they deserve. Look at it, appreciate it, and then let it go. Let it fly away.
Yes.
And I think that appreciation is really important when we shut down our own emotional communication with ourselves. Emotions are so valid. They're so important. If you're angry, when I'm angry about something, it's because there's some communication, some message about some injustice or something that's not right. And if I can see that and untangle that, then I can do something about it.
Yes.
And if I'm sad, that's so important for me to know. I don't want to be holding these things, storing these things in myself and have them come out warped years later, or, just erode me from the inside. So there's a lot in there. I'm long-winded. I'm going to have a sip of tea.
Okay. You have a sip of tea. Yes. I love when you talk about our illiteracy around emotions. And it's really interesting because right now, external events, right, I believe are sort of putting the spotlight on those cracks and crevices and caves and corners that you spoke about. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I actually can't avoid this anymore because I'm at home with the caves, right?
Right. And they're all like tucked under things and hidden away, but that's all there is. Surrounded by my caves.
Surrounded by my caves.
And my partner's caves. And right?
My kids and
all of it. Yeah.
All of it. And so, what my observation has been, and maybe this is yours too, but I'd love to hear what you would recommend to people who are being confronted with the emotions, but because like you said, most of us are not taught that, oh yes, this is the spectrum. Yes, it's good to feel it all. Here's how you can welcome it. Here's how you can acknowledge it. Here's how you can release it, right? That's not really part of what we're taught at home or school or even church, right? Religious, spiritual. So what would you recommend to people who are feeling a wide range of emotions and realizing they don't know what to do with it, but they do know what they do when they feel it? Maybe they have an outburst. Maybe they are drinking more. Maybe they're eating more. Maybe they're hiding out. What's a step that can help them move sort of from where they are one place closer to this?
Well, certainly your question is, if people recognize their sort of coping mechanism, their coping behavior, that's huge already. Okay. And my instinct actually about that is to be really gentle. Mm-hmm. If it's your coping mechanism, fine. Let that be your coping mechanism. You don't have to then also layer on top, oh, I shouldn't do this thing that actually helps me. Not in this moment, because we've sort of globally been thrown into our caves. Okay. And that doesn't mean that the treasure's not still in there and that we can't find it. But if we put too many expectations on ourselves, we chastise ourselves and we brutalize ourselves in addition to all that's already going on, that's not helping, right? That's going to make me reach for more of the thing that I needed anyway. And it's going to be this perpetual self-inflicted perpetual cave that has no treasure in it, that just has like a mean person in it.
Right.
Which is me.
Exactly.
So to answer the question, I would say, ask the thing that I always ask. Who are you? And that doesn't mean that you have to have the definitive answer or that answer is going to be static and permanent forever. Who are you right now? Right now, which is that first initiation towards getting to know yourself, which is building that foundation that then once you feel grounded in yourself, and just asking the question won't accomplish this necessarily, but the practice is, oh, I noticed that I'm coping. That's okay. Be gentle with that coping person. The same way that if you saw your child struggling or a friend struggling, you wouldn't chew them out. I know you wouldn't. You would say, yeah, this is hard. This is hard. Go for it. Enjoy that glass of wine. It's okay. Or you need a little extra Netflix. That's okay. You want to lose yourself in work. Okay. Whatever the thing is, allow that, but also allow the space for the question of who are you? There's a new question I've been asking, because even the language "who are you" in English makes it sound like that's a fixed and permanent thing. Whereas in Spanish, soy and estoy, like the to be verbs, there's two of them. There's the things that I am permanently, like I'm female, and that's probably not going to change. But then estoy triste, I feel sad. I am in a permanent sense sad. Whereas in English, if you say I am sad, I am also an accountant, that's your identity. Yes. And in English, we don't have this separation for I feel, because we don't say that very often in our sort of socialization. We don't say I feel sad. We say I am sad, just grammatically. But what if that were a way for you to get to know yourself in the moment? And going back, the question is, who am we? Like the multiple parts of myself.
Yes.
Or who am us? It's just sort of this, because there's various parts of yourself. You open up the possibility for your emotional self, your mental self, your financial self, your romantic self. It's crowded in here. Make room for all of you and get to know the various parts of yourself. So, and it's not multiple personality disorder. You're not going to get all, but identify. I did a practice a long time ago that I found really helpful. Can I share it?
Yes.
So if you know what's triggering you, if it's your fear or your anger or your resentment, close your eyes and picture that aspect of yourself embodied. Is it an animal? Is it a person? How old is it? What characteristics does it have? Get to know it. Draw it. Name it. Really get to know it. And then talk to it. I'm like, hi, Sylvester. You look like you're a little upset. What's going on? I know we haven't talked in a long time, but I'm here now and I'm listening. And that actually really opens up, surprisingly, a dialogue with aspects of yourself. And so your anger is this 4-year-old boy who's having a little fit, but you can talk to that boy instead of shushing that boy again and say, why are you angry? I'm listening. We can get through this together. And then whatever it comes up, you've got all this information, this gold to play with now. And I did this exercise, and I do this with clients regularly. I did this for my fear and my anger and my judgmentalness and my resentment and my stubbornness. And when I was done making acquaintances, I wouldn't say friends from the beginning, but making acquaintances with these aspects of myself, a couple of days later, I was walking down the street and I felt like I was in the beginning of a superhero movie where there was like that string of people behind me, because I was like, oh, I'm good. I've got anger over here. I've got judgment and fear, and we got this, because I saw how they'd been working for me.
Yeah.
Like my judgmentalness was trying to protect me. It was. But I was always like, no, I'm not supposed to be judgmental. Shush, 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 shush. Instead of saying, thank you. I appreciate what you're doing. It's not necessary, and totally diffusing the whole thing. So I don't know entirely how relevant that is in this exact moment, but I know that if we're
I love it.
juggling all these things and we're overwhelmed and we don't know what we're feeling, it's an interesting way to access parts of ourselves. And you can even up the ante by starting a conversation. If you write with your dominant hand, ask a question to that aspect of yourself, and then put the pen or pencil in your non-dominant hand and answer the question.
I love that.
This breaks through the conscious subconscious barrier of our brain and all the muscle memory, because it's a part of ourselves we don't often use, and it will literally write like a 3-year-old, squiggly, wobbly, but things come up, and you can have a whole dialogue with aspects of yourself that you might never have even imagined, because it's breaking the pattern of how you relate to yourself. So those two things in conjunction, or either or, I would love for folks to try it and let me know. If anyone has any questions about them and they're listening, send us a message.
Absolutely. I love that. And, I noticed that I went through that same experience myself after I lost Nina. I started by saying, I feel sad, or I feel disappointed, I feel mad, I feel grief too. Grief is here today. Grief has visited me, right?
Yeah.
Sadness has shown up today. And it is a huge transition from I am sad to I feel sad to sadness has visited me today.
Yeah.
That journey just open. And then I could literally, like you said, see it as something that I could communicate with, I could relate to, I could honor, and I knew was not going to define me forever. Because I think what you said is it. I think we're afraid to look at those emotions, to say I'm angry or I'm sad or I'm mad or disappointed, because if I do that, that's who I'm going to become. And I don't want to do that, because that's bad, right? We've been taught these are good emotions.
And I'll never get out of it, right?
I'll never get out of it.
If I feel this, I will feel it forever, which ironically is, if I don't feel it now, I will carry it with me forever.
It is the truth. It is the truth. And I love what you said about the coping mechanisms as well, because I became very aware that my coping mechanism was sugar, because I needed to feel like sweetness could still exist in my life, even though my heart had been broken, right?
Yeah.
And what I noticed is it wasn't just like any and all sugar. It was one particular thing. I became committed, I'll use that word.
Good word.
A piece of cheesecake every day.
Damn straight.
Every day.
Go for it. Yeah.
9 a.m. I had my cheesecake, because that was what was going to set the day. There's still sweetness in the world. There's still pleasure in the world. There's still goodness in the world. And I remember, I was raised like organic from the womb. And so, of course, I knew this, quote unquote, isn't good for me, right? But what I did is I just allowed myself to sort of have my binky, have my pacifier, have what I needed, right? My blinky.
Yeah.
And then one day I didn't need it anymore.
Because telling yourself this isn't good for me also isn't good for you, right? Chastising yourself, depriving yourself, punishing yourself isn't good for you.
Sort of like the training wheels, right?
It is. And you don't, I mean, I know the voice in my head when I do the things that comfort me that aren't good for me. You know, the hard work, good, but there's comfort. And the voice that chews me out every single time I'm comforting myself usually can be worse than the thing I needed comforting from in the first place. And so if ever, and if now, we can practice gentleness with ourselves, that's a huge amount of resilience, because we're not also then attacking us.
Yeah.
Right? We're easing up on ourselves and allowing. One of the things I've been practicing at this time, you know, I'm trying to still exist on the digital plane and be with a kid who just turned 5 and very often wants my attention. Solo parenting, it's like, it's a thing. I'm practicing what I call fierce imperfection.
Yeah.
And I am, you know, everyone strives for authenticity. It's that one of those beautiful buzzwords that we want to be authentic, but we also want to be like gloriously, beautifully, flawlessly authentic.
Yeah.
Right. Instagram authentic.
Right.
And that's, for me, it may be doable, but it's absolutely not worth my time and my energy to aspire to. So authenticity is messier. And I call it fierce imperfection because it makes me feel sort of awesome.
Yeah.
To be a little bit more of a mess, and mess is not even, it doesn't mean to me what I think it means when most people hear it. I think that's a good thing. You know, it means I'm wrestling with stuff, which means I'm engaged in my life and not letting the fear of hiding out or being human. I'm human, which makes me this great, amazing, inspirational, and still, you know, gassy or whatever it is, right? Like, yeah, imperfect. I'm imperfect, perfectly imperfect. So
definitely connecting to our humanity and realizing that is actually what is universal, right? I want to pop up your website. Tell people how they can connect with you, learn more about you.
Yeah, I am on the computer almost every day, despite my daughter's wishes. I can be found on Facebook, Sierra Melcher, or Integral Women Mentoring on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Women Integral. And I answer my phone. I respond to email, and I love hearing from people. I love connecting with people, and my zone of genius is actually supporting people before they've figured all this out. Right? Yeah. I know even in myself, sometimes I'm like, oh, I can't ask for help yet because I need to sort this out a little bit before I invite someone else in. Do you know what I mean?
It's like when I clean the house before the housekeeper comes.
That is such a thing. It's like, this is my mess. I need someone to clean it up. But I need to clean it up because I'm too embarrassed even by my own mess to have the person who's supposed to clean up the mess see it.
Right.
It's a real thing.
It's
a real thing.
Oh yeah.
And so my greatest moments are when someone calls me in tears, whether it's somebody I know or somebody I've never met before, because it tells me that they are so committed to themselves that they are willing to show up 100% as they are, which is already a huge step, right? Because it means they're ready.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, I also want to pop up because you recently came out with a book. Yes.
I did. Yes.
And I would love for people to go check it out, How Change Really Happens. And this is one of my favorite quotes that I want to be able to leave everyone with, because you alluded to this earlier. But I think that it's really worth writing down and hanging on to right now. if you have your own back, you can always move forward.
Yeah. Because, and this is what I mentioned, that if you're on your own team, and you're playing, right? Again, this metaphor of playing. We're playing. We have the various team members, and you're not your own worst enemy. Then you can get through anything.
Absolutely.
But we are so close to ourselves that if we are the enemy, it's going to be a battle and not a game.
So true. So true. Yeah, nothing like going up against your meanest self, right?
Oh, yeah. No, she's horrible. And I'm glad she's horrible. She got me strong. She, kept me safe. But it took me 3 years of mess, various degrees of mess, to make friends with her. And now she doesn't lash out. This is actually so critical too. Our anger, our fear, our meanness, once it's listened to, doesn't have that much to say.
That is the truth.
You have a cranky kid and you don't listen to them, they will keep fitting whatever that is. They will melt and scream and kick and throw. And the more that you try to get them to stop, the more that they will just explode. So if you stop and listen to them and quiet and hold and welcome them, welcome whatever that part of yourself is, like, yeah, you seem upset. Do you want a hug? Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to take a break and then we can talk about it when you're ready? The things that I learned from parenting have really, really helped me with my relationship with myself. Because for a while I was better with her than I was with myself.
Yeah.
But I know what works. This is the other great thing about kids is they don't have all these filters that make it confusing what they're thinking or feeling. Whereas adults, we've put so many filters on. We're like, I don't even know what color I'm looking at right now. Just sort of a mush, a gray, browny mush. Whereas kids are the purest communicators I've ever come across. And I look at her and I'm like, you know what? That I'm aspiring for that degree of purity. When she's joyous, oh my God, she's singing, she's dancing, she's moving around the house. When she's angry, also full commitment. Commitment's a good word. She's fully committed to her experience. And then it works its way out. And literally in a matter of 3 seconds, she can go from full meltdown to giggling.
Right.
It's not pivoting. She's just like, done, next, what's up? And we struggle because we don't fully commit to anything. And so we can't flow. But if we listen to those parts of ourselves that are struggling, instead of shushing them, then they'll say what they need to say and be like, okay, that was it. I just wanted to get your attention. I got it. I'm good now.
Can keep moving.
Yeah.
Sierra, it's been so good to have you. And thank you for sharing your stories, your wisdom. I love the practical exercises that you also laid out. I'm excited also because Sierra is one of the contributors in Empire Moms. It's going to be released on Friday, so we'll be promoting a lot of that. Be sure to get her book, How Change Really Happens. It's available on Amazon. And Sierra, is there any final words that you'd like to leave our audience with?
You've got this. And when you let yourself, you are far more magnificent than you may have been allowing yourself to believe. And so if you open yourself to that, you may just be flooded with that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And I want to remind you that in the description, you can find more information about Sierra. You can also pick up a free pass to my networking influencers, as well as my free guide on how to jumpstart your book. Big hugs from Mexico. Until next time, stay well. Thank you, Sierra.
So much. Bye.